Welcome to today's Triple Z. The Triple Z podcast is a daily program that you can use to help you fall asleep each night. Just turn down the volume, lay back, relax, and enjoy as you fall asleep. We saw that our podcast was topping the charts in Croatia, so we are going to read their Wikipedia entry. Let's learn about this interesting country in the dullest way possible. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to write us a review on your podcast platform and share us with a friend. You both might sleep just a little better at night. Our website is Triple Z, that's 3zs.media. You can also like and share our content on Facebook or our Instagram account ZZZ Media Podcast. Music for today's episode was provided by the Sleep channel on Spotify. Croatia, officially the Republic of Croatia, is a country at the crossroads of Central and Southeast Europe. Its coast lies entirely on the Adriatic Sea. It borders Slovenia to the northwest, Hungary to the northeast, Serbia to the east, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro to the southeast, and shares a maritime border with Italy to the west and southwest. Its capital and largest city, Zagreb, forms one of the country's primary subdivisions, with 20 counties. The country spans 56,594 square kilometers, 21,851 square miles, and has a population of nearly 3.9 million. The Croats arrived in the late 6th century. By the 7th century, they had organized the territory into two duchies. Croatia was first internationally recognized as independent on June 7, 879, during the reign of Duke Branimir. Tomislav became the first king by 925, elevating Croatia to the status of a kingdom. During the succession crisis after the Trpimirovic dynasty ended, Croatia entered a personal union with Hungary in 1102. In 1527, faced with Ottoman conquest, the Croatian parliament elected Ferdinand I of Austria to the Croatian throne. In October 1918, the state of Slovenes, Croats, and Serbs, independent from Austria-Hungary, was proclaimed in Zagreb, and in December 1918, it merged into the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. Following the Axis invasion of Yugoslavia in April 1941, most of Croatia was incorporated into a Nazi-installed puppet state, the independent state of Croatia. A resistance movement led to the creation of the Socialist Republic of Croatia, which after the war became a founding member and constituent of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. On June 25, 1991, Croatia declared independence, and the War of Independence was successfully fought over the next 4 years. Croatia is a republic and a parliamentary liberal democracy. It is a member of the European Union, the Eurozone, the Schengen area, NATO, the United Nations, the Council of Europe, the OSCE, the World Trade Organization, a founding member of the Union for the Mediterranean, and is currently in the process of joining the OECD. An active participant in United Nations peacekeeping, Croatia contributed troops to the International Security Assistance Force and was elected to fill a non-permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council in the 2008 to 2009 term for the first time. Croatia is a developed country with an advanced high-income economy and ranks 40th in the Human Development Index. According to the Gini coefficient, it also ranks among the top 20 countries with the lowest income inequality in the world. Service, industrial sectors, and agriculture dominate the economy. Tourism is a significant source of revenue for the country, which is ranked among the top 20 most popular tourist destinations in the world. Since 2000s, the Croatian government has heavily invested in infrastructure, especially transport routes and facilities along the pan-European corridors. Croatia has also recently positioned itself as a regional energy leader and is contributing to the diversification of Europe's energy supply via its floating liquefied natural gas import terminal off Krk Island, LNG Hrvatska. Croatia provides social security, universal health care, and tuition-free primary and secondary education while supporting culture through public institutions and corporate investments in media and publishing. Croatia's non-native name derives from medieval Latin Croatia, while the Latin variation Croatorum is archaeologically confirmed on a church inscription found in Bijasi near Trogir dated to the end of the 8th or early 9th century. The presumably oldest stone inscription with fully preserved ethnonym is the 9th century Branimir inscription found near Benkovac, where Duke Branimir is styled Dux Croatorum, likely dated between 879 and 892 during his rule. The Latin term Croatorum code, lab promoted to code, law is attributed to a charter of Duke Trpimir of Croatia, dated to 852 in a 1568 copy of a lost original, but it is not certain if the original was indeed older than the Branimir inscription. The area known as Croatia today was inhabited throughout the prehistoric period. Neanderthal fossils dating to the Middle Paleolithic period were unearthed in northern Croatia, best presented at the Krpina site. Remnants of Neolithic and Chalcolithic cultures were found in all regions. The largest proportion of sites is in the valleys of northern Croatia. The most significant are Baden, Starcevo, and Vuestal cultures. Iron Age hosted the early Illyrian Hallstatt culture and the Celtic Latine culture. Much later, the region was settled by Illyrians and Liburnians, while the first Greek colonies were established on the islands of Var, Korčula, and Viscount. In 9 AD, the territory of today's Croatia became part of the Roman Empire. Emperor Diocletian was native to the region. He had a large palace built in Split, to which he retired after abdicating in AD 305. During the 5th century, the last de jure Western Roman Emperor Julius Nepos ruled a small realm from the palace after fleeing Italy in 475. The period ends with Avar and Croat invasions in the late 6th and first half of the 7th century and the destruction of almost all Roman towns. Roman survivors retreated to more favorable sites on the coast, islands, and mountains. The city of Dubrovnik was founded by such survivors from Epidaurus. The ethnogenesis of Croats is uncertain. The most accepted theory, the Slavic theory, proposes migration of white Croats from White Croatia during the migration period. Conversely, the Iranian theory proposes Iranian origin based on Tanais tablets containing ancient Greek inscriptions of given names Koroathos, Koroathos, and Koroathos and their interpretation as anthroponyms of Croatian people. According to the work De Administrando Imperio written by 10th century Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII, Croats arrived in the Roman province of Dalmatia in the first half of the 7th century after they defeated the Avars. However, that claim is disputed. Competing hypotheses date the event between the late 6th, early 7th, mainstream, or the late 8th, early 9th, fringe, centuries, but recent archaeological data has established that the migration and settlement of the Slavs/Croats was in the late 6th and early 7th century. Eventually, a dukedom was formed, Duchy of Croatia, ruled by Borna, as attested by chronicles of Einhard starting in 818. The record represents the first document of Croatian realms, vassal states of Francia at the time. Its neighbor to the north was Principality of Lower Pannonia, at the time ruled by Duke Judevit, who ruled the territories between the Drava and Sava rivers, centered from his fort at Sisak. This population and territory throughout history was tightly related and connected to Croats and Croatia. According to Constantine VII, the Christianization of Croats began in the 7th century, but the claim is disputed, and generally, Christianization is associated with the 9th century. It is assumed that initially encompassed only the elite and related people. The Frankish overlordship ended during the reign of Mislav, or his successor Trpimiri. The native Croatian royal dynasty was founded by Duke Trpimiri in the mid-9th century, who defeated the Byzantine and Bulgarian forces. The first native Croatian ruler recognized by the Pope was Duke Branimir, who received papal recognition from Pope John VIII on June 7, 879. Tomislav was the first king of Croatia, noted as such in a letter of Pope John X in 925. Tomislav defeated Hungarian and Bulgarian invasions. The medieval Croatian kingdom reached its peak in the 11th century during the reigns of Petar Krasimir IV (1058–1074) and Mitar Zvonimir (1075–1089). When Sejpan II died in 1091, ending the Trpimirovic dynasty, Mitar Zvonimir's brother-in-law Ladislaus I of Hungary claimed the Croatian crown. This led to a war and personal union with Hungary in 1102 under Koloman. For the next 4 centuries, the Kingdom of Croatia was ruled by the Sabor, parliament, and a ban, viceroy, appointed by the king. This period saw the rise of influential nobility such as the Frankopan and Subic families to prominence, and ultimately numerous bans from the two families. An increasing threat of Ottoman conquest and a struggle against the Republic of Venice for control of coastal areas ensued. The Venetians controlled most of Dalmatia by 1428, except the city-state of Dubrovnik, which became independent. Ottoman conquests led to the 1493 Battle of Krbava Field and the 1526 Battle of Mohacs, both ending in decisive Ottoman victories. King Louis II died at Mohacs, and in 1527 the Croatian parliament met in Cetin and chose Ferdinand I of the House of Habsburg as the new ruler of Croatia, under the condition that he protects Croatia against the Ottoman Empire while respecting its political rights. Following the decisive Ottoman victories, Croatia was split into civilian and military territories in 1538. The military territories became known as the Croatian military frontier and were under direct Habsburg control. Ottoman advances in Croatia continued until the 1593 Battle of Sisak, the first decisive Ottoman defeat, when borders stabilized. During the Great Turkish War, 1683–1698, Slavonia was regained, but western Bosnia, which had been part of Croatia before the Ottoman conquest, remained outside Croatian control. The present-day border between the two countries is a remnant of this outcome. Dalmatia, the southern part of the border, was similarly defined by the 5th and the 7th Ottoman-Venetian Wars. The Ottoman Wars drove demographic changes. During the 16th century, Croats from western and northern Bosnia, Lika, Krbava, the area between the rivers of Una and Kupa, and especially from western Slavonia, migrated towards Austria. Present-day Beginland Croats are direct descendants of these settlers. To replace the fleeing population, the Habsburgs encouraged Bosnians to provide military service in the military frontier. The Croatian parliament supported King Charles III's Pragmatic Sanction and signed their own Pragmatic Sanction in 1712. Subsequently, the emperor pledged to respect all privileges and political rights of the Kingdom of Croatia, and Queen Maria Theresa made significant contributions to Croatian affairs, such as introducing compulsory education. Between 1797 and 1809, the First French Empire increasingly occupied the eastern Adriatic coastline and its hinterland, ending the Venetian and the Ragusan republics, establishing the Illyrian provinces. In response, the Royal Navy blockaded the Adriatic Sea, leading to the Battle of Vis in 1811. The Illyrian provinces were captured by the Austrians in 1813 and absorbed by the Austrian Empire following the Congress of Vienna in 1815. This led to the formation of the Kingdom of Dalmatia and the restoration of the Croatian littoral to the Kingdom of Croatia under one crown. The 1830s and 1840s featured romantic nationalism that inspired the Croatian National Revival, a political and cultural campaign advocating the unity of South Slavs within the empire. Its primary focus was establishing a standard language as a counterweight to Hungarian while promoting Croatian literature and culture. During the Hungarian Revolution of 1848, Croatia sided with Austria. Ban Josip Jelačić helped defeat the Hungarians in 1849 and ushered in a Germanization policy. By the 1860s, the failure of the policy became apparent, leading to the Austro-Hungarian Compromise of 1867. The creation of a personal union between the Austrian Empire and the Kingdom of Hungary followed. The treaty left Croatia's status to Hungary, which was resolved by the Croatian-Hungarian settlement of 1868 when the kingdoms of Croatia and Slavonia were united. The Kingdom of Dalmatia remained under de facto Austrian control, while Rijeka retained the status of corpus separatum introduced in 1779. After Austria-Hungary occupied Bosnia and Herzegovina following the 1878 Treaty of Berlin, the military frontier was abolished. The Croatian and Slavonian sectors of the frontier returned to Croatia in 1881 under provisions of the Croatian-Hungarian settlement. Renewed efforts to reform Austria-Hungary, entailing federalization with Croatia as a federal unit, were stopped by World War I. On October 29, 1918, the Croatian Parliament, Sabor, declared independence and decided to join the newly formed state of Slovenes, Croats, and Serbs, which in turn entered into union with the Kingdom of Serbia on December 4, 1918 to form the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes. The Croatian parliament never ratified the union with Serbia and Montenegro. The 1921 constitution defining the country as a unitary state and abolition of Croatian parliament and historical administrative divisions effectively ended Croatian autonomy. The new constitution was opposed by the most widely supported national political party, the Croatian Peasant Party, HSS, led by Stjepan Radić. The political situation deteriorated further as Radić was assassinated in the National Assembly in 1928, leading to King Alexander I to establish a dictatorship in January 1929. The dictatorship formally ended in 1931 when the king imposed a more unitary constitution. The HSS, now led by Vlatko Maček, continued to advocate federalization, resulting in the Cvetković-Maček Agreement of August 1939 and the autonomous Banovina of Croatia. The Yugoslav government retained control of defense, internal security, foreign affairs, trade, and transport, while other matters were left to the Croatian Sabor and a crown-appointed ban. In April 1941, Yugoslavia was occupied by Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. Following the invasion, a German-Italian installed puppet state named the Independent State of Croatia, NDH, was established. Most of Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and the region of Sirmia were incorporated into this state. Parts of Dalmatia were annexed by Italy. Hungary annexed the northern Croatian regions of Baranja and Nedomerj. The NDH regime was led by anti-Pavelic and ultranationalist Ustase, a fringe movement in pre-war Croatia. With German and Italian military and political support, the regime introduced racial laws and launched a genocide campaign against Serbs, Jews, and Roma. Many were imprisoned in concentration camps. The largest was the Jasenovac complex. Anti-fascist Croats were targeted by the regime as well. Several concentration camps, most notably the Rab, Gonars, and Malet camps, were established in Italian-occupied territories, mostly for Slovenes and Croats. At the same time, the Yugoslav royalist and Serbian nationalist Chetniks pursued a genocidal campaign against Croats and Muslims, aided by Italy. Nazi German forces committed crimes and reprisals against civilians in retaliation for partisan actions, such as in the villages of Kamesnica and Lipa in 1944. A resistance movement emerged. On June 22, 1941, the 1st Sisak partisan detachment was formed near Sisak, the first military unit formed by a resistance movement in occupied Europe. That sparked the beginning of the Yugoslav partisan movement, a communist, multi-ethnic anti-fascist resistance group led by Josip Broz Tito. In ethnic terms, Croats were the second largest contributors to the partisan movement after Serbs. In per capita terms, Croats contributed proportionately to their population within Yugoslavia. By May 1944, according to Tito, Croats made up 30% of the partisans' ethnic composition, despite making up 22% of the population. The movement grew fast, and at the Tehran Conference in December 1943, the partisans gained recognition from the Allies. With Allied support in logistics, equipment, training, and air power, and with the assistance of Soviet troops taking part in the 1944 Belgrade Offensive, the partisans gained control of Yugoslavia and the border regions of Italy and Austria by May 1945. Members of the NDH armed forces and other Axis troops, as well as civilians, were in retreat towards Austria. Following their surrender, many were killed in the Yugoslav death march of Nazi collaborators. In the following years, ethnic Germans faced persecution in Yugoslavia, and many were interned. The political aspirations of the partisan movement were reflected in the State Anti-Fascist Council for the National Liberation of Croatia, which developed in 1943 as the bearer of Croatian statehood and later transformed into the parliament in 1945, and AVNIJ, its counterpart at the Yugoslav level. Based on the studies on wartime and post-war casualties by demographer Vladimir Zurjevic and statistician Bogoljub Kočević, a total of 295,000 people from the territory, not including territories ceded from Italy after the war, died, which amounted to 7.3% of the population, among whom were 125 to 137,000 Serbs, 118 to 124,000 Croats, 16 to 17,000 Jews, and 15,000 Roma. In addition, from areas joined to Croatia after the war, a total of 32,000 people died, among whom 16,000 were Italians and 15,000 were Croats. Approximately 200,000 Croats from the entirety of Yugoslavia, including Croatia and abroad, were killed in total throughout the war and its immediate aftermath, approximately 5.4% of the population. After World War II, Croatia became a single-party socialist federal unit of the SFR Yugoslavia, ruled by the communists, but having a degree of autonomy within the federation. In 1967, Croatian authors and linguists published a declaration on the status and name of the Croatian standard language, demanding equal treatment for their language. The declaration contributed to a national movement seeking greater civil rights and redistribution of the Yugoslav economy, culminating in the Croatian Spring of 1971, which was suppressed by Yugoslav leadership. Still, the 1974 Yugoslav constitution gave increased autonomy to federal units, basically fulfilling a goal of the Croatian Spring and providing a legal basis for independence of the federative constituents. Following Tito's death in 1980, the political situation in Yugoslavia deteriorated. National tension was fanned by the 1986 Sanu Memorandum and the 1989 coups in Vojvodina, Kosovo, and Montenegro. In January 1990, the Communist Party fragmented along national lines, with the Croatian faction demanding a looser federation. In the same year, the first multi-party elections were held in Croatia, while Franjo Tudjman's win exacerbated nationalist tensions. Some of the Serbs in Croatia left Sabor and declared autonomy of the unrecognized Republic of Serbian Krajina, intent on achieving independence from Croatia. As tensions rose, Croatia declared independence on June 25, 1991. However, the full implementation of the declaration only came into effect after a 3-month moratorium on the decision on October 8, 1991. In the meantime, tensions escalated into overt war when the Serbian-controlled Yugoslav People's Army, JNA, and various Serb paramilitary groups attacked Croatia. By the end of 1991, a high-intensity conflict fought along a wide front reduced Croatia's control to about 2/3 of its territory. Serb paramilitary groups then began a campaign of killing, terror, and expulsion of the Croats in the rebel territories, killing thousands of Croat civilians and expelling or displacing as many as 400,000 Croats and other non-Serbs from their homes. Serbs living in Croatian towns, especially those near the front lines, were subjected to various forms of discrimination. Croatian Serbs in eastern and western Slavonia and parts of the Krajina were forced to flee or were expelled by Croatian forces, though on a restricted scale and in lesser numbers. The Croatian government publicly deplored these practices and sought to stop them, indicating that they were not a part of the government's policy. On January 15, 1992, Croatia gained diplomatic recognition by the European Economic Community, followed by the United Nations. The war effectively ended in August 1995 with a decisive victory by Croatia. The event is commemorated each year on August 5th as Victory and Homeland Thanksgiving Day and the Day of Croatian Defenders. Following the Croatian victory, about 200,000 Serbs from the self-proclaimed Republic of Serbian Krajina fled the region, and hundreds of mainly elderly Serb civilians were killed in the aftermath of the military operation. Their lands were subsequently settled by Croat refugees from Bosnia and Herzegovina. The remaining occupied areas were restored to Croatia following the Erdut Agreement of November 1995, concluding with the UNTA's mission in January 1998. Most sources number the war deaths at around 20,000. After the end of the war, Croatia faced the challenges of post-war reconstruction, the return of refugees, establishing democracy, protecting human rights, and general social and economic development. The main law of independent Croatia was established with the constitution adopted on December 22, 1990, 6 months prior to declaration of independence. The post-2000 period is characterized by democratization, economic growth, structural and social reforms, as well as problems such as unemployment, corruption, and the inefficiency of the public administration. In November 2000 and March 2001, the Parliament amended the constitution, changing its bicameral structure back into its historic unicameral form and reducing presidential powers. Croatia joined the Partnership for Peace on May 25, 2000 and became a member of the World Trade Organization on November 30, 2000. On October 29, 2001, Croatia signed a Stabilization and Association Agreement with the European Union, submitted a formal application for the EU membership in 2003, was given the status of candidate country in 2004, and began accession negotiations in 2005. In December 2011, Croatia completed EU accession negotiations and signed an EU accession treaty on December 9, 2011. Croatia joined the European Union on July 1, 2013. A recurring obstacle to the negotiations was Croatia's ICTY cooperation record and Slovenian blocking of the negotiations because of Croatia-Slovenia border disputes. Although the Croatian economy had enjoyed a significant boom in the early 2000s, the financial crisis in 2008 forced the government to cut spending, thus provoking a public outcry. Croatia served on the United Nations Security Council for the 2008 to 2009 term, assuming the presidency in December 2008. On April 1, 2009, Croatia joined NATO. A wave of anti-government protests in early 2011 reflected a general dissatisfaction with politics and economics. Croatia completed EU accession negotiations in 2011. A majority of Croatian voters opted in favor of EU membership in a 2012 referendum. Croatia joined the European Union effective July 1, 2013. Croatia was affected by the 2015 European migrant crisis when Hungary's closure of borders with Serbia pushed over 700,000 refugees and migrants to pass through Croatia on their way to other countries. On October 19, 2016, Andrej Plenković began serving as Croatian Prime Minister. The most recent presidential elections, on January 5, 2020, elected Zoran Milanović as president. Croatia is situated in Central and Southeast Europe, on the coast of the Adriatic Sea. Hungary is to the northeast, Serbia to the east, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro to the southeast, and Slovenia to the northwest. It lies mostly between latitudes 42 degrees and 47 degrees north and longitudes 13 degrees and 20 degrees east. Part of the territory in the extreme south surrounding Dubrovnik is a practical exclave connected to the rest of the mainland by territorial waters, but separated on land by a short coastline strip belonging to Bosnia and Herzegovina around Neum. The Peljasak Bridge connects the exclave with mainland Croatia. The territory covers 56,594 square kilometers, 21,851 square miles, consisting of 56,414 square kilometers, 21,782 square miles of land and 128 square kilometers, 49 square miles, of water. It is the world's 127th largest country. Elevation ranges from the mountains of the Dinaric Alps, with the highest point of the Dinara Peak at 1,831 meters, 6,007 feet, near the border with Bosnia and Herzegovina in the south, to the shore of the Adriatic Sea, which makes up its entire southwest border. Insular Croatia consists of over 1,000 islands and islets varying in size, 48 of which permanently inhabited. The largest islands are Cres and Krk, each of them having an area of around 405 square kilometers, 156 square miles. The hilly northern parts of Hrvatsko's Gorge and the flat plains of Slavonia in the east, which is part of the Pannonian Basin, are traversed by major rivers such as Danube, Drava, Kupa, and the Sava. The Danube, Europe's second longest river, runs through the city of Vukovar in the extreme east and forms part of the border with Vojvodina. The central and southern regions near the Adriatic coastline and islands consist of low mountains and forested highlands. Natural resources found in quantities significant enough for production include oil, coal, bauxite, low-grade iron ore, calcium, gypsum, natural asphalt, silica, mica, clays, salt, and hydropower. Karst topography makes up about half of Croatia and is especially prominent in the Dinaric Alps. Croatia hosts steep caves, 49 of which are deeper than 250 meters, 820.21 feet, 14 deeper than 500 meters, 1,640.42 feet, and 3 deeper than 1,000 meters, 3,280.84 feet. Croatia's most famous lakes are the Plitvice Lakes, a system of 16 lakes with waterfalls connecting them over dolomite and limestone cascades. The lakes are renowned for their distinctive colors, ranging from turquoise to mint green, gray, or blue. Most of Croatia has a moderately warm and rainy continental climate as defined by the Köppen climate classification. Mean monthly temperature ranges between -3 degrees Celsius (27 degrees Fahrenheit) in January and 18 degrees Celsius (64 degrees Fahrenheit) in July. The coldest parts of the country are Lika and Gorski Kotar, featuring a snowy, forested climate at elevations above 1,200 meters, 3,900 feet. The warmest areas are at the Adriatic coast and especially in its immediate hinterland, characterized by Mediterranean climate, as the sea moderates temperature highs. Consequently, temperature peaks are more pronounced in continental areas. The lowest temperature of -35.5 degrees Celsius (-31.9 degrees Fahrenheit) was recorded on February 3, 1919 in Kakavek, and the highest temperature of 42.8 degrees Celsius (109.0 degrees Fahrenheit) was recorded on August 4, 1981 in Ploce. Mean annual precipitation ranges between 600 millimeters (24 inches) and 3,500 millimeters (140 inches), depending on geographic region and climate type. The least precipitation is recorded in the outer islands, Bajsevo, Lastovo, Svetak, Vis, and the eastern parts of Slavonia. However, in the latter case, rain occurs mostly during the growing season. The maximum precipitation levels are observed on the Dinara mountain range and in Gorski Kotar. Prevailing winds in the interior are light to moderate northeast or southwest, and in the coastal area, prevailing winds are determined by local features. Higher wind velocities are more often recorded in cooler months along the coast, generally as the cool northeasterly Bora or less frequently as the warm southerly Yugo. The sunniest parts are the outer islands, Var and Korčula, where more than 2,700 hours of sunshine are recorded per year, followed by the Middle and Southern Adriatic Sea area in general, and Northern Adriatic coast, all with more than 2,000 hours of sunshine per year. Croatia can be subdivided into ecoregions based on climate and geomorphology. The country is one of the richest in Europe in terms of biodiversity. Croatia has 4 types of biogeographical regions: the Mediterranean along the coast and in its immediate hinterland, alpine in most of Lika and Gorski Kotar, Pannonian along Drava and Danube, and continental in the remaining areas. The most significant are karst habitats, which include submerged karst, such as Sermanja and Krka canyons and tufa barriers, as well as underground habitats. The country contains 3 ecoregions: Dinaric Mountains mixed forests, Pannonian mixed forests, and Illyrian deciduous forests. The karst geology harbors approximately 7,000 caves and pits, some of which are the habitat of the only known aquatic cave vertebrate, the olm. Forests are significantly present as they cover 2,490,000 hectares, 6,200,000 acres, representing 44% of Croatian land area. Other habitat types include wetlands, grasslands, bogs, fens, scrub habitats, coastal and marine habitats. In terms of phytogeography, Croatia is a part of the Boreal Kingdom and is a part of Illyrian and Central European provinces of the Circumboreal region and the Adriatic province of the Mediterranean region. The Worldwide Fund for Nature divides Croatia between 3 ecoregions: Pannonian mixed forests, Dinaric Mountains mixed forests, and Illyrian deciduous forests. Croatia hosts 37,000 known plant and animal species, but their actual number is estimated to be between 50,000 and 100,000. More than 1,000 species are endemic, especially in Velebit and Biokovo Mountains, Adriatic Islands, and karst rivers. Legislation protects 1,131 species. The most serious threat is habitat loss and degradation. A further problem is presented by invasive alien species, especially Caulerpa taxifolia algae. Croatia had a 2018 Forest Landscape Integrity Index mean score of 4.92/10, ranking it 113th of 172 countries. Invasive algae are regularly monitored and removed to protect benthic habitat. Indigenous cultivated plant strains and domesticated animal breeds are numerous. They include 5 breeds of horses, 5 of cattle, 8 of sheep, 2 of pigs, and 1 poultry. Indigenous breeds include 9 that are endangered or critically endangered. Croatia has 444 protected areas, encompassing 9% of the country. Those include 8 national parks, 2 strict reserves, and 10 nature parks. The most famous protected area and the oldest national park in Croatia is Plitvice Lakes National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Velebit Nature Park is a part of the UNESCO Man and the Biosphere Program. The strict and special reserves, as well as the national and nature parks, are managed and protected by the central government, while other protected areas are managed by counties. In 2005, the National Ecological Network was set up as the first step in the preparation of the EU accession and joining of the Natura 2000 network. The Republic of Croatia is a unitary, constitutional state using a parliamentary system. Government powers in Croatia are legislative, executive, and judiciary powers. The President of the Republic is the head of state, directly elected to a 5-year term and is limited by the Constitution to 2 terms. In addition to serving as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the President has the procedural duty of appointing the Prime Minister with the Parliament and has some influence on foreign policy. The government is headed by the Prime Minister, who has 4 Deputy Prime Ministers and 16 ministers in charge of particular sectors. As the executive branch, it is responsible for proposing legislation and a budget, enforcing the laws, and guiding foreign and internal policies. The government is seated at Banski Dvori in Zagreb. A unicameral parliament, Sabor, holds legislative power. The number of Sabor members can vary from 100 to 160. They are elected by popular vote to serve 4-year terms. Legislative sessions take place from January 15th to July 15th and from September 15th to December 15th annually. The 2 largest political parties in Croatia are the Croatian Democratic Union and the Social Democratic Party of Croatia. Croatia has a civil law legal system in which law arises primarily from written statutes, with judges serving as implementers and not creators of law. Its development was largely influenced by German and Austrian legal systems. Croatian law is divided into 2 principal areas, private and public law. Before EU accession negotiations were completed, Croatian legislation had been fully harmonized with the Community Acquis. The main national courts are the Constitutional Court, which oversees violations of the Constitution, and the Supreme Court, which is the highest court of appeal. Administrative, commercial, county, misdemeanor, and municipal courts handle cases in their respective domains. Cases falling within judicial jurisdiction are in the first instance decided by a single professional judge, while appeals are deliberated in mixed tribunals of professional judges. Lay magistrates also participate in trials. The state's attorney office is the judicial body constituted of public prosecutors empowered to instigate prosecution of perpetrators of offenses. Law enforcement agencies are organized under the authority of the Ministry of the Interior, which consists primarily of the National Police Force. Croatia's security service is the Security and Intelligence Agency, SOA. Croatia has established diplomatic relations with 194 countries, supporting 57 embassies, 30 consulates, and 8 permanent diplomatic missions. 56 foreign embassies and 67 consulates operate in the country, in addition to offices of international organizations such as the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, International Organization for Migration, IOM, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, World Bank, World Health Organization, WHO, International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, ICTY, United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, and UNICEF. As of 2019, the Croatian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and European Integration employed 1,381 personnel and expended 765.295 million kunas, 101.17 million euros. Stated aims of Croatian foreign policy include enhancing relations with neighboring countries, developing international cooperation, and promotion of the Croatian economy and Croatia itself. Croatia is a member of the European Union. As of 2021, Croatia had unsolved border issues with Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Serbia, and Slovenia. Croatia is a member of NATO. On January 1, 2023, Croatia simultaneously joined both the Schengen area and the Eurozone, having previously joined the ERM2 on July 10, 2020. The Croatian Armed Forces, CAF, consist of the Air Force, Army, and Navy branches in addition to the Education and Training Command and Support Command. The CAF is headed by the General Staff, which reports to the Defense Minister, who in turn reports to the President. According to the Constitution, the President is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. In case of immediate threat during wartime, he issues orders directly to the General Staff. Following the 1991-95 war, defense spending and CAF size began a constant decline. As of 2019, military spending was an estimated 1.68% of the country's GDP, 67th globally. In 2005, the budget fell below the NATO-required 2% of GDP, down from the record high of 11.1% in 1994. Traditionally relying on conscripts, the CAF went through a period of reforms focused on downsizing, restructuring, and professionalization in the years before accession to NATO in April 2009. According to a presidential decree issued in 2006, the CAF employed around 18,100 active duty military personnel, 3,000 civilians, and 2,000 voluntary conscripts between 18 and 30 years old in peacetime. Compulsory conscription was abolished in January 2008. Until 2008, military service was obligatory for men at age 18 and conscripts served 6-month tours of duty, reduced in 2001 from the earlier scheme of 9 months. Conscientious objectors could instead opt for 8 months of civilian service. As of May 2019, the Croatian military had 72 members stationed in foreign countries as part of United Nations-led international peacekeeping forces. As of 2019, 323 troops served the NATO-led ISAF force in Afghanistan. Another 156 served with KFOR in Kosovo. Croatia has a military-industrial sector that exported around 493 million kunas, 65,176 million euros, worth of military equipment in 2020. Croatian-made weapons and vehicles used by CAF include the standard sidearm HS-2000 manufactured by HS Product and the M84D battle tank designed by the Đuro Đaković factory. Uniforms and helmets worn by CAF soldiers are locally produced and marketed to other countries.